One of the most famous shipwrecks of all time. But there's one version of Titanic we have never seen until this morning.
That's right. Experts have used special technology to map the entire ship on the ocean floor.
Decades after its tragic sinking, the Titanic still holds secrets at the bottom of the Atlantic. Recent drone footage gives us a closer look than ever before, capturing shifting debris, eerie shadows, and unexpected movement inside the wreck. Scientists and explorers alike are both fascinated and unsettled. What is actually happening down there? And what can these deep-sea images tell us about the life, decay, and enduring mystery of the ship that has captivated the world for over a century? Peering into the Titanic's depths. Exploring the Titanic is like stepping into another world. Resting more than 2 miles beneath the Atlantic, the ship has been swallowed by darkness, pressure, and salt water for over a century. Until recently, humans had only fleeting glimpses of it, a few snapshots, old submersible footage, or sonar scans. But modern drone technology has changed the game. Small, remotely operated vehicles equipped with ultra-high-definition cameras, powerful lights, and robotic arms can now glide through the wreckage in ways that were impossible even a decade ago. Did such expeditions find supernatural and unexplainable changes? In one recent expedition, a team sent a fleet of drones down to survey the ship's interior. Unlike traditional submersibles, which are bulky and require direct piloting, these drones can weave through corridors, peer into cabins, and hover over the grand staircase without disturbing the fragile wreck. The result is footage that feels almost alive. The camera drifts past twisted steel, broken furniture, and scattered personal items as if the ship were frozen mid-motion. What drew attention immediately were the subtle movements. What's still moving even after long years since the Great Sink? Debris shifted slightly in the currents, loose panels trembled, and clouds of sediment floated with the water's flow. It's the kind of movement that feels eerie, almost as if the ship itself is breathing, but it's entirely explainable. Ocean currents, water pressure changes, and the decay of metal structures all contribute to this slow, almost ghostly motion. Scientists were quick to weigh in. Dr. Elena Martinez, a deep-sea archaeologist, explained, "When you're dealing with a wreck this old, everything is in constant motion. Rust eats away at the metal, parts collapse under their own weight, and the smallest current can create tiny whirlpools that shift debris. What looks like movement isn't supernatural, it's simply the ocean doing its work." Some of the more intriguing footage comes from inside the passenger areas.
Common items take on uncommon significance.
Nestled amongst all of that debris, I saw shoes.
Cabins once filled with luggage and personal effects now reveal piles of deteriorating objects, porcelain dishes, shoes, fragments of clothing. Drone cameras capture dust clouds and sediment stirred up by the tiniest disturbance. Marine life, crabs, small fish, and shrimp have made homes in these corners, and their scuttling adds to the sense that the wreck is still alive in some way. Even the famous grand staircase, long collapsed in parts, shows slow, subtle shifts as rusticles, the icicle-like formations of rust bacteria, grow and flake off. What's remarkable is how much the drones reveal about the ship's decay. Traditional exploration relied on sonar or distant cameras, giving rough outlines of the ship's structure. Now, we can watch the Titanic almost like a living organism. Steel slowly bending under pressure, wooden surfaces splintering, and the sea claiming more of the ship every day. Each new flight of a drone adds to our understanding, showing researchers which parts of the wreck are most fragile and how natural forces are reshaping the vessel over time. There's also a psychological effect. Watching this footage gives the viewer a sense of intimacy with history. You can see what it might have been like to move through the Titanic before the disaster, now overlaid with the evidence of decay. For many, this is what makes the ship endlessly fascinating. It isn't just a wreck. It's a time capsule, frozen yet subtly changing, a bridge between past and present. Of course, the footage also raises questions about exploration ethics. Every dive risks disturbing the site. Scientists are careful to avoid contact with fragile areas, but the ocean itself is relentless. Rusticles crumble, metal panels collapse, and sediment clouds rise without warning. The drones allow a balance, minimal disturbance, maximum insight. The public reaction to these expeditions has been intense. Footage released in documentaries, science channels, and museum exhibits shows the Titanic like never before. For decades, fascination with the ship came from stories, films, and photographs. Now, people can experience the wreck almost firsthand, drifting down the hallways, peering into cabins, and watching as the ocean slowly reclaims one of history's most famous ships. What the drone footage also makes clear is that the Titanic is still changing. No two expeditions capture the wreck exactly the same. Tiny shifts in sediment, slight movements in rusting metal, and marine activity make each dive unique. This constant transformation reminds us that even a century-old wreck is not static. The ocean continues to sculpt, corrode, and move everything within the ship, creating moments that seem eerie or unsettling but are entirely natural. For scientists, historians, and enthusiasts alike, the footage offers something more than just images. It's data, narrative, and a connection to the past. Each frame of video tells a story of human ambition, tragedy, and the relentless power of nature. By examining these images carefully, researchers can track decay rates, monitor fragile structures, and even anticipate how future dives might be conducted safely. But the wreck is not frozen in time. It's still quietly reshaping that struck scientists and the explorers. The Titanic's slow decay, nature's silent work. Even at the ocean floor, nothing stays still forever. The Titanic, once a marvel of human engineering, is gradually succumbing to its underwater environment. Over a century, beneath crushing pressure, freezing temperatures, and constant currents, the ship's steel and wood are slowly breaking down, each layer telling a story of time, nature, and inevitability. The most obvious sign of decay is the corrosion of metal. The Titanic's hull, once gleaming and strong, is now riddled with holes, jagged edges, and twisted beams. This process isn't sudden. It's relentless, driven by a combination of salt water, oxygen, and microscopic life. Bacteria, particularly the iron-eating kind, have created formations called rusticles. These structures hang like icicles from the ship's skeleton, growing slowly as they consume iron. Eventually, chunks fall away, taking pieces of the vessel with them. This ongoing breakdown is visible in the drone footage. Subtle shifts in panels, clouds of sediment falling, and even entire sections collapsing inward. Wood and other organic materials face a different fate. Cabins, furniture, and fixtures, long submerged, are gradually softening, splintering, and losing their structural integrity. Microbes and deep-sea worms feed on any remnants, leaving only shadows of what once was. Even fabrics, leather, and paper have largely disappeared, although fragments may survive in pockets protected from currents. The decomposition isn't uniform. Some parts of the ship are remarkably preserved, often shielded by metal or sediment, while others have been hollowed out entirely. Currents and underwater weather also play a significant role. Deep-sea currents may seem gentle to humans, But over decades, they slowly scour surfaces, move loose debris, and shift silt and sand. These flows give the illusion of life in the wreck. When drones capture small clouds of sediment or objects swaying, it's often the product of these invisible, patient forces. Even small differences in current velocity or direction can dramatically alter how debris moves. Salt and pressure further complicate the scene.
The Titanic has offered an unprecedented insight into the ship's final moments. A detailed three-dimensional reconstruction of the wreck reveals engineers worked to keep the lights on even as the vessel sank.
At nearly 12,500 feet below sea level, the Titanic faces pressures over 5,500 pounds per square inch. This immense weight compresses weak points in the structure, bending and collapsing metal where the rust has thinned it. At the same time, the salt water accelerates corrosion, especially in areas where currents expose metal surfaces. The combination of pressure, erosion, and biological activity ensures that the Titanic will never remain static. It is a structure constantly evolving, even in ruin. Temperature might seem irrelevant in such a setting, but the deep Atlantic is consistently near freezing. While this slows some microbial activity, it also preserves materials that might otherwise rot faster at warmer depths. Certain wooden beams or personal effects survive longer in these conditions, creating pockets where the past remains surprisingly intact, contrasting with the devastation elsewhere. One fascinating factor is the interaction of the wreck with marine life. Creatures of all sizes, from tiny bacteria to small fish and invertebrates, use the Titanic as habitat. These organisms play a subtle but critical role in decomposition. Rust-eating bacteria dissolve iron. Wood-boring worms consume organic materials. Even the movement of larger fish can dislodge debris or stir sediment. This constant interaction makes the wreck feel like a living environment, though it is entirely the result of natural processes rather than any conscious activity. Drone footage captures all of this in remarkable detail. Observers see shifting beams, cascading sediment clouds, and colonies of rusticles growing and breaking away. The slow movement creates a haunting effect, like watching a giant sculpture gradually erode. But it is not magic. It is physics, chemistry, and biology in motion, playing out over decades. Understanding the Titanic's decay is not just an academic exercise. It informs conservation efforts, guides exploration, and helps archaeologists plan safer dives. By studying how the ship decomposes, researchers can predict which sections are most vulnerable and which areas might yield the best insights into life aboard the ship in 1912. It also offers a broader lesson about the impermanence of human creations. Even the largest, most technologically advanced structures will eventually yield to natural forces. The ongoing decomposition also raises questions about time, memory, and even mystery. Movements that defy expectation. One of the most gripping aspects of the recent Titanic drone expeditions is the footage showing movement in the wreck. Subtle, almost imperceptible shifts that leave both scientists and viewers staring in disbelief. At first glance, it's hard to believe anything could move in a structure buried under nearly 2.5 miles of water for over a century. Yet the cameras reveal it. Beams slightly trembling, panels rocking, sediment clouds rising as if disturbed by invisible hands. Researchers call this dynamic decay, a phenomenon where the wreck isn't static. Rusticles, the icicle-like formations of bacteria consuming the ship's iron, grow and break off unpredictably, sending pieces downward. Even the tiniest changes in deep-sea currents can cause large sections of debris to shift. Some footage shows entire walls or stair sections trembling, giving the illusion that the ship is alive, breathing, or reacting to something unseen. Marine life adds another layer of complexity. Small fish, crabs, and shrimp inhabit crevices and passageways. Their movements, often in large groups, can trigger vibrations that nudge loose panels or stir sediment. The drone cameras capture these events in high definition, making it look eerily deliberate, almost like the wreck itself is moving. Yet, there are moments even seasoned scientists struggle to explain. Some debris seems to shift without obvious cause. A twisted railing trembles on one dive, but remains still on another. Clouds of sediment form suddenly, even when currents appear minimal. Experts remain cautious, noting that unseen microcurrents, differences in water density, or even the subtle vibrations caused by the drones themselves can create movement that seems impossible at first glance. The psychological impact of watching this footage cannot be understated. For viewers, these unexplained movements make the Titanic feel alive, a monument that's both ancient and ever-changing. It taps into our natural fascination with mystery, the sense that even in a well-studied shipwreck, the ocean still holds secrets. Drone footage offers a unique perspective. For the first time, we can see the Titanic not as a frozen relic, but as a dynamic, shifting environment. Every slight movement, every ripple of sediment, reminds us that this is a site shaped by forces beyond human control. And while scientists work to explain every twitch and tremor, the footage continues to inspire awe, curiosity, and a touch of unease. Beneath the ocean's surface, it is a complex ecosystem, a slowly collapsing structure, and a stage for phenomena that challenge our expectations of what still really means. And for now, some movements remain just out of reach of explanation, a subtle, haunting dance of time, nature, and decay. While the ship has changed tremendously, the remains and belongings of those aboard keep the human side of the tragedy alive. What was saved and preserved? The Titanic rests as a grave beneath the Atlantic, and while most of the tragedy lies undisturbed, a number of human remains and personal belongings have been recovered over the decades. These finds are a poignant reminder of the lives lost and the human stories that define the disaster. Each artifact, each remnant, connects us to the individuals who lived, dreamed, and perished on that fateful voyage. In the immediate aftermath of the sinking, recovery efforts focused on the bodies that floated to the surface. Ships like the Mackay Bennett and the Minia retrieved over 300 victims, many of whom were identified through personal effects or clothing. These early recoveries provided families with closure and offered historians the first tangible link to the people aboard. While the majority of passengers remain on the ocean floor, the recovered remains helped establish records of the passengers' identities and stories. Personal belongings tell equally compelling stories. Jewelry, watches, letters, and clothing were recovered from the victims and debris. Even small objects, a pocket knife, a comb, a locket, give a human face to the tragedy. Museums around the world now house these items, presenting them with sensitivity and historical context. Each artifact is carefully preserved, and the labels often include the name of the passenger it belonged to, bridging the century between 1912 and the present. Scientific efforts have also allowed for more precise identification. Modern forensic techniques, such as DNA testing, have enabled researchers to match recovered remains with descendants of victims. These methods have brought closure to families long after the disaster and continue to provide insight into the demographic and social makeup of those aboard. In some cases, DNA analysis has helped clarify previously uncertain identifications, confirming the names of first-class travelers, crew members, and immigrants traveling in third class. Artifacts recovered from the wreck itself present another dimension. Expeditions to the Titanic have occasionally brought up objects from the lower decks, letters preserved in briefcases, fragments of clothing, or personal items that survived the cold and pressure. Each item must be handled with extreme care, as even a small misstep can cause irreversible damage. Conservation specialists stabilize materials, remove salt residues, and document every detail. This meticulous process ensures that the artifacts can tell their stories for generations to come. Human remains and personal effects also raise profound ethical questions. While recovering artifacts can provide insight into history and science, the Titanic remains a grave. Modern expeditions strive to respect this reality. Only a limited number of items are brought to the surface, and every recovery is carefully considered to balance historical value with the dignity owed to those who perished. These recovered items, whether human remains or personal belongings, are a bridge between past and present. They remind us that the Titanic is more than a shipwreck. It is a snapshot of real lives, real hopes, and real loss. Each find sparks reflection on the people behind the headlines and statistics. The fathers, mothers, children, and crew members whose stories continue to touch us more than a century later. Beyond the wreck and its slow decay, the story of the Titanic lives on in culture, memory, and fascination. A phenomenon that keeps drawing us back. Titanic phenomenon. On the night of April 14, 1912, the RMS Titanic, the largest and most luxurious ship of its time, struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic. For more than a century, that tragic moment has captured the imagination of the world, combining human drama, technological ambition, and sheer misfortune. The Titanic wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol of modern engineering, wealth, and the human desire to conquer the seas. Its sinking was sudden, catastrophic, and full of stories that still resonate today. The passengers aboard the Titanic represented a cross-section of society. First-class travelers enjoyed opulent accommodations, fine dining, and lavish entertainment. Many were wealthy industrialists, politicians, and celebrities of the era. They dressed in the height of fashion, dined on multi-course meals, and strolled through ornate halls decorated with wood, glass, and gold leaf. For them, the Titanic was the pinnacle of comfort, a floating palace where luxury was the norm. Meanwhile, second- and third-class passengers led very different lives. Immigrants hoping for a new beginning in America occupied the lower decks.
The Titanic carried some of the world's wealthiest passengers, as well as hundreds in third class seeking a new life in America. The Titanic continues to captivate the world through books, films, and historic memorabilia.
They traveled with families, carrying belongings and dreams, facing cramped quarters and simple meals. Yet, despite these disparities, all passengers shared a common bond. They were on a journey across the Atlantic, a voyage that would turn deadly in hours. When the iceberg struck, chaos and courage collided. Lifeboats were launched in a world without enough capacity for everyone, and the frigid water claimed more than 1,500 lives. Heroism and tragedy unfolded side by side. Crew members stayed at their posts. Musicians played to calm passengers, and strangers helped each other escape. Every personal story, from families torn apart to strangers saved by chance, added layers to the human drama that the Titanic represents. What makes the Titanic tragedy endure is not only the scale of the disaster, but the stories of those involved. Letters, diaries, and survivor accounts provide intimate glimpses into a world lost to time. Names like Captain Edward Smith, Molly Brown, and Thomas Andrews remain part of popular memory, representing leadership, bravery, and sometimes hubris. The personal element keeps the Titanic alive in the public consciousness, transforming a maritime disaster into a deeply human tale. Over the decades, the Titanic has become much more than history. Its story has been told through books, exhibitions, and films, most famously James Cameron's 1997 movie. These adaptations blend fact with dramatization, giving audiences a sense of the ship's grandeur, the tension of the iceberg collision, and the heartbreak of lives lost. The blend of reality and narrative makes the Titanic not just an event, but a phenomenon, a cultural touchstone that continues to spark curiosity, reflection, and imagination. This fascination explains why drone footage of the wreck captures attention so intensely today. People are no longer just reading about the Titanic or seeing staged recreations. High-definition images and video from the depths of the Atlantic allow a glimpse of what remains, preserved in cold water, dark currents, and sediment. Viewers can see the layout of cabins, the remains of personal belongings, and the corrosion and decay that time has wrought on the ship. This is history in motion, frozen yet slowly changing, and it feels immediate, personal, and haunting. The Titanic's continued presence under the ocean also fuels speculation and mystery. The wreck has been explored for decades, but new technologies like drones provide perspectives that were impossible even a few years ago. Viewers can witness sections of the ship that have never been seen, details that can only be interpreted through careful analysis. From the ghostly grand staircase to the debris-strewn lower decks, the ship is revealed as both artifact and living environment, a silent witness to a tragedy that still captivates us. Cultural fascination is further reinforced by the Titanic's symbolic status. It represents human ambition, the dangers of overconfidence, and the fragility of life in the face of nature. The ship's design and construction were celebrated as cutting-edge, yet even the most modern technology of the time could not prevent disaster. This duality, human innovation and vulnerability, resonates with audiences. Drone footage reminds viewers of this tension. Here is a masterpiece of engineering, now corroded, fragmented, and inhabited by life in ways its builders could never have imagined. Every expedition to the Titanic also underscores the ethical questions surrounding exploration. Scientists, historians, and documentarians must navigate between curiosity and respect for the site as a grave. Drone footage allows minimal intrusion, revealing the wreck's secrets without excessive disturbance. This careful observation appeals to the modern audience, which is fascinated not just by the ship itself, but by the responsibility and challenge of uncovering history safely.
The Titanic is really a deep-sea museum with the doors wide open. There's no lock on the door and there's no guard.
The phenomenon of the Titanic extends beyond fascination with tragedy. It taps into universal themes: ambition, loss, human error, and heroism. The drone footage provides a bridge between the past and present, allowing viewers to witness decay, understand the effects of deep-sea conditions, and appreciate the resilience of materials and life. Every moving rusticle, every sediment cloud, every shadowed cabin captures part of a story that is centuries old, yet vividly present in the imagination. Ultimately, the Titanic phenomenon endures because it is both personal and collective. Individuals are drawn to the tales of passengers, the dramatic escape attempts, and the heroism displayed during the disaster. Communities and cultures continue to commemorate, study, and honor the ship and its passengers. The blend of human emotion, historical significance, and technological marvel keeps the Titanic alive in our consciousness. Drone footage amplifies this phenomenon by providing a visceral connection to the ship itself. No longer is it just a story, it's a tangible experience. People can see the scale, the condition, and the ongoing transformations of the Titanic in real time. This combination of history, technology, and human interest ensures that the fascination with the Titanic is unlikely to fade anytime soon. Even over a century later, the ship continues to teach, haunt, and inspire, a permanent fixture in both the ocean and our imagination. Exploration challenges. Exploring the Titanic is no small feat. Resting nearly 12,500 feet below the ocean's surface, the ship sits in a world that is as alien as space. Darkness is absolute, temperatures hover near freezing, and water pressure exceeds 5,500 pounds per square inch. Every expedition, from the first dives in the 80s to the latest drone missions, has faced extraordinary technical and logistical challenges. In the earliest explorations, submarines had to be specially designed to withstand the crushing depths. Submersibles like Alvin and Mir were state-of-the-art for their time, allowing a handful of researchers to peer through tiny portholes into the wreck. Visibility was limited, and pilots had to navigate by instinct and sonar, often relying on tethers and ropes. Every movement carried risk. A collision with jagged metal could puncture the vessel, and a single equipment malfunction could become fatal. As technology evolved, remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and drones transformed Titanic exploration. Cameras could now capture high-definition images and video, mapping the ship with unprecedented detail. Yet even with modern tools, challenges remain. Currents, sediment clouds, and corrosion make navigation tricky. A sudden collapse of a rusted beam or the growth of fragile rusticles can obscure passages and create hazards for sensitive equipment. Each dive requires careful planning, precision piloting, and constant monitoring of environmental conditions. The depth itself poses unique problems. Human divers cannot survive at these pressures, so every expedition relies on submersibles or robots. Communication with surface ships is limited, meaning operators must anticipate problems well in advance. Even small mistakes, like miscalculating buoyancy or lighting, can result in lost footage or damage to the wreck. Every mission is a balance between gathering data and protecting fragile equipment. Should we just leave the wreckage alone and in peace? Beyond technical hurdles, the Titanic presents a complex ethical landscape. It is not just a shipwreck, it is a grave. Over 1,500 people lost their lives that night.
Astonishing new scientific evidence reveals the chain of events that brought about the demise of a ship that was thought to be unsinkable and led to the death of over 1,500 people, the greatest maritime loss in modern history.
And the wreck represents the final resting place for many. Early expeditions occasionally caused unintentional damage. Loose artifacts were disturbed, sediment clouds were stirred, and fragile structures were impacted by submersibles. As awareness grew, ethical guidelines became central to every mission. Today, exploration emphasizes minimal intrusion, documenting rather than removing, and respecting the site as both a historical monument and a maritime cemetery. One major ethical consideration is artifact recovery. In the 80s and 90s, some expeditions retrieved personal belongings, furniture, and even parts of the ship itself. While museums displayed these artifacts to educate the public, critics argued that removing items from a grave site was disrespectful. Modern standards prioritize observation over collection, using photography, 3D mapping, and digital preservation to study the wreck without disturbing it physically. This shift balances curiosity and scientific value with respect for those who perished. Another ethical issue concerns commercialization. Titanic-themed tourism, documentaries, and films generate enormous revenue. Yet, the question arises, should a tragedy of this magnitude be entertainment? While public interest is understandable, experts caution against exploiting the site for profit in ways that compromise its integrity. Drone footage and virtual tours now allow audiences to experience the Titanic responsibly, preserving both educational value and the solemnity of the wreck. Environmental factors also play into ethics. Deep-sea ecosystems around the Titanic are fragile. Rusticles, microbial colonies, and deep-sea creatures depend on the wreck for habitat. Explorers must avoid disrupting these environments, balancing scientific investigation with conservation. Every maneuver, light, and thruster blast is carefully calculated to reduce impact. Modern expeditions incorporate environmental monitoring alongside archaeological study, ensuring that the wreck's surroundings remain as undisturbed as possible. The human element adds another layer of complexity. Operators, historians, and engineers must work together seamlessly. Pilots control drones or submersibles from the surface, relying on real-time feeds and precise instrumentation. Scientists interpret findings, noting the effects of currents, corrosion, and marine life. Each team member carries responsibility for safety, data integrity, and ethical stewardship. The Titanic, though centuries old, demands vigilance, coordination, and respect from every human who approaches it. Even with the latest technology, unexpected challenges arise. Equipment can fail under extreme pressure. Sediment can reduce visibility to near zero. Rusted structures may collapse without warning. These obstacles require flexibility, quick thinking, and contingency plans. Every expedition is a reminder that nature, not humans, ultimately controls the wreck. The Titanic exists on its own terms, shaped by currents, decay, and deep-sea life. Explorers must adapt to its rules, not the other way around. The ethical approach to exploration also extends to storytelling. Documentaries, books, and footage should present the wreck accurately, avoiding sensationalism or speculation. Movements captured by drones, like shifting debris or rustical collapses, are fascinating, but they must be contextualized. Experts emphasize explanation over exaggeration, showing how natural processes, currents, and microbial activity create eerie visuals without resorting to myths. Presenting the Titanic responsibly ensures audiences understand both the tragedy and the science behind its decay. The Titanic's exploration is a delicate dance between human curiosity, technological capability, and moral responsibility. Each dive teaches more about history, marine biology, and engineering, while reminding us of the site's sanctity. The combination of technical challenge, ethical obligation, and environmental sensitivity makes every mission both remarkable and necessary. Drone footage epitomizes this balance. It allows unprecedented access, capturing moments of decay and movement without disturbing the site. High-definition cameras document every beam, artifact, and sediment cloud, giving researchers and the public alike a chance to witness the Titanic's slow transformation. At the same time, it upholds ethical standards, minimizing intrusion and respecting the memory of those lost. If you loved exploring the Titanic's secrets with us, don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into history and mysteries.